Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Fire Emblem 3 Houses Only Love Can Hurt Like This Part 1 in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 91, Rest and Recuperation. When they made it back, Lawrence pushed open the doors of the infirmary so that the rest of the people could get through. Ash walked in with some more medical supplies, making sure that the room was well stocked to help everyone who suffered injuries during the fight. Hubert came limping in with an arrow wound in his thigh a bit after the huge rush came in. Dorothea stood anxiously at the infirmary doors, looking between Linhard and Ingrid's beds. Cyril kept glancing over at Lysithea, but he ended up leaving before actually saying anything to anyone. Sylvain sat up a little bit to see everything that was going on. First, Lysithea was brought to a bed. The medics got to work on healing her straight away. They brought Linhard to a bed as well because he was showing symptoms of sickness, although it could have just been from him being grossed out by the slime. They brought Felix in, putting him in a bed. Immediately, they started stitching him up. Sylvain gasped, throwing the blankets off of himself. Felix. He tried to get up and run over, but one of the medics stopped him. Felix was trying to act cool and not make any noise while they were stitching him, but he gave in eventually. Dimitri set Ingrid in a bed as well, fetching her some ice for her head. Sylvain was upset to see her in the infirmary as well, and he was going to go check on her, but again, the medics made him stay in bed. Ingrid put the ice on her head. "I can't thank you enough, Dimitri," she mumbled. "Just rest, Ingrid," Dimitri said after handing her the ice. "I'm just glad that we haven't lost you." Ingrid nodded slightly. "Okay. Please let me know if Felix is all right." She closed her eyes. "I will," Dimitri told her, gently moving some of the hair from her eyes. "For now, I think he's going to be okay. I'll have to ask him about what happened. But until then, rest." He moved his hand away. Ingrid thought that was so sweet. She looked up at him, a sad expression on her face. She said one last thank you before some nurses came back to try some healing magic on her ribs. Dimitri stayed in the medical room. His three best friends were currently in there, not counting Claude and Didu, so he wanted to make sure they were all okay. Casper came up to Dorothea. Thanks a bunch for saving me back there. I really owe you one," he said. "I would have been dead meat." "Literally." Dorothea looked at him. "That was scary, to say the least." She sighed. "I'm really hoping nothing is seriously wrong with Linhard," she said to Casper. Casper said, "I can't believe my best friend and I were almost eaten alive by a monster. Even if we were, I'd punch a hole straight through its stomach and burst out of there." Dorothea sighed. "I'm sure you would, Casper." A shrill voice called out to them from a few feet away. "Casper!" Hilda was behind him. "Are you okay?" she asked, making her way over. Casper turned around when he heard her. "Hilda!" He ran straight at her and tackled her in a big giant hug. It was such a forceful hug that they fell onto the ground. He smiled. "I'm fine. You should have seen me. I kicked butt in that fight." He really didn't, besides finishing off the demonic beast, but he wanted Hilda to think he was brave. Hilda giggled. "Ah, Casper. I missed you." She squeezed him, not even caring that they were on the floor. "I'm sure you did. You're the strongest fighter in all of Garag Mach," she exclaimed. Casper let go of her after a little while. "I missed you too so much. I can't believe you were all locked up like that. It made me mad. So I fought my heart out for you just now." Hilda smiled again, rising to her feet. "Don't worry, Holst let me out," she explained. "I think he wants to spar with you tomorrow." "Wait, what? With me? But, okay. I've been training extra hard lately to prove myself to him, so I guess I accept the challenge." "He better be prepared to lose," he said, confidently. Hilda sighed. "I hope so. He says this is gonna help him decipher if he's gonna allow us to date one another." "What? Okay, well, I better start training right now. I'm a little scratched up from the fight, but I gotta really bring it tomorrow. Our future depends on this fight," Casper replied. Hilda nodded. "You better. He's not here right now, so you should be good." For now, I need to meet up with Marianne. I'll see you soon, okay Casper? Okay. I'm glad you're doing alright, though. You have no idea how happy I am to see you. Casper smiled. I'm gonna go train, but I'll come back to see you later, I promise. He ran off, then suddenly turned back around and gave her another quick little hug before running off again. She giggled. Bye Casper. She thought he was adorable. She went to go see Marianne after, making sure she was okay as well. Felix was trying to get up, but the medics wouldn't let him. Dmitri walked over to Felix's bedside. Felix, don't strain yourself. You'll only end up hurting yourself worse if you behave like this. Take the time you need to rest and heal, please. Felix glared at him. Don't tell me what to do, he sneered. I need to train harder. Felix, no. You've been training hard enough, you don't need to train hard, you need to rest easy, Dmitri told him, holding his hands out as if he were saying, stop. Felix narrowed his eyes. Yeah, okay, you haven't relaxed a day in your life. Dmitri said, this isn't about me. But nobody, including you, will benefit from you straining yourself right now. Stay in bed until your wound heals. I need you to tell me about what happened, though. I didn't even know you followed me and Ingrid. I dueled the Flame Emperor, Felix said with a small huff. I lost. The Flame Emperor? He was at the fight. Dmitri asked, looking surprised. So he was the one behind the attack. Felix nodded. Yeah. He was strong. I couldn't land a hit, he said to Dmitri, even though he hated to admit it. He's a formidable foe. I hope that we can someday put an end to his treachery. Sooner than later, Dmitri let out a sigh. Thank you for your bravery, Felix. Your attempt to stop him will not be in vain. Each time we face him on the battlefield, we get closer and closer to defeating him. Maybe, Felix muttered. He paused, whatever. It's not worth the trouble. He moved his head to the left so he could glance at Sylvain. Dmitri was sort of blocking Felix's sight toward Sylvain's bed, but he didn't realize he was in the way. I happen to think it is well worth the trouble, especially after all the distress he's caused us. You don't agree? Felix didn't say anything. He only looked away. That's not what I'm saying. It's not worth the trouble of me getting stronger to defeat him, he said, hinting that he thought Dmitri should be the one to do it, but he would never admit that. I was thinking it might be best to combine our strength to defeat him, but now that I think more about it, the more I realize the risk. I should be the one to do it. That way, you and the rest of the people I care about will be safe. Dmitri moved out of the way a little. Sylvain was desperately trying to look around Dmitri in order to see how Felix was doing. Felix looked as well when Dmitri moved. He kinda stopped listening to what he was saying, since he was more focused on Sylvain than anything at the moment. Dmitri kept talking, but stopped when he realized Felix was practically ignoring him. He sighed. Never mind. I will talk with you later, Felix. He headed off to go do something else. Sylvain frowned. He didn't say anything, he just sort of looked at Felix and dramatically reached his arm toward him like he was saying I miss you. Felix frowned, just looking back at Sylvain. He motioned for him to come over. Ask them to wheel your bed over here, he said, trying to stay quiet so he wouldn't wake Ingrid, Linhard, or Lysithea. If they see me get up they're gonna make me go right back to bed, Sylvain whispered back. Here. Watch. He started tying his sheets together to make a big chain. He added his pillowcase to the end just to make it a tad longer, and then he threw it to Felix's bed. He missed. Damn. Okay, wait, catch. He tried again, but threw it too short. He wiggled the chain a little to see if it could actually reach, but decided to try throwing it to Felix one last time. He accidentally threw it right into Felix's bedside table, and knocked over a glass bottle of rubbing alcohol. It woke everyone up, and the medics came over to scold him, making him unravel his stupid chain. Once they left, he just looked at Felix. I was gonna have us pull each other closer when they weren't looking, but I guess that's out of the question. Felix was staring at him with an unreadable look on his face. That was so unbelievably stupid, he said, but in reality, was trying not to laugh. Why didn't you just ask them to do it? You woke everyone up. You think they're gonna agree to that? The whole world knows we're gay now, so there's not a chance the medics are just gonna agree to pushing our beds together. Sylvain shrugged. They don't want too much PDA on school grounds, I guess. Okay, well, we're both pretty broken. I don't think anything is gonna happen. I just wanna talk, Felix said, rolling his eyes. Ingrid snapped at them from across the room. Be quiet. Sylvain whispered back to her, sorry. We're whisper chatting. He looked back at Felix. Yeah, I wanna talk too. Okay, that was a stupid joke, I'll admit, but I genuinely wanna talk. Ingrid spoke again. You're not whisper chatting. You guys aren't even whispering. Knock it off. Now. Felix frowned. Good night, Sylvain. He turned away from him. Ugh. Fine. Good night. Sylvain closed his eyes to go to sleep. He really wanted to keep stealing looks at Felix, but he was too fatigued to do so. Later that evening, Ferdinand decided to pay Petra a visit. Petra opened her door. She had a few tiny cuts on her cheeks, and she was holding a cotton ball in her hands. She smiled at the sight of him. Hello, Ferdinand. Good evening, Petra. I know it's late, but I was wondering if you were still interested in receiving your word of the day? Well, at this point it would probably be considered word of the night. He laughed a little bit. She nodded. Yes. Of course I would. She let him in, and then sat back down at her desk. She looked in her mirror, and continued dabbing her cuts with the cotton ball. What is the word being today? Ferdinand glanced around, observing his surroundings even though he'd been in her room before. He cleared his throat. Are you ready? Today's word of the day is, again, he paused for dramatic effect. Enamor. He smiled. Instead of explaining the word right away, he asked, any guesses? She put her cotton ball down and stood back up. My guess is to be glowing. Like that time your skin was being so beautiful in the hot spring. She said with a smile. His smile grew after hearing her guess. That was a very good guess. You are actually very close, he said, but shook his head. Although I was enamored by the sight of you at that moment, he trailed off a little bit, then took a few steps closer to her. To be enamored with something, or someone, is to be filled with the feeling of love. He blushed ever so slightly. That is a very pretty word. I am being enamored with the word. She laughed. Am I using it correctly? She looked up at Ferdinand. I think this may be my favorite word of the day yet. Yes. In fact, that is exactly how you would use it in a sentence minus a few grammatical errors, but that is not a big deal. I knew what you were trying to say. He smiled. I am glad you are enjoying my word of the day routine. I'm having a wondrous time picking out words to share with you. It is all worth it to see the smile they bring to your face. It is also giving me an excuse to see you, Ferdinand, she pointed out. Besides learning a new language, that is my favorite part. Being able to speak with you each and every day. I am enamored. Yes. I could say the same. Yesterday, I was feeling a bit guilty for not being able to stop by in person. I am sorry, but we both survived the trials of the day, which makes our time together even sweeter. He took her by the hand. I am enamored by you too, Petra, he said, interlocking their fingers as he held up their hands between them. Her mouth opened slightly, and her cheeks glowed pink as she looked at their hands, and then back up at Ferdinand. Ferdinand. It seemed as if she was going to say something, and then backed out. He realized that she may not have liked his gesture, so he let go of her hand and backed away slightly. My apologies. I seemed to have gotten a little carried away with the word of the day, it seems. Haha, he nervously looked away. No. She reached forward and grabbed his hand in both of hers. No, Ferdinand. I am enjoying your touch. It is nice, she said. It is strange. I have not been feeling this way about anyone before. Oh. I see, he said, his face turning red, both from what she said and the way she grabbed his hand. And, how are you feeling about me? Yes, I understand you have used the word of the day to describe it, but I would like you to use your own words to describe it, if you will. It feels as if my heart is being on fire, she said, and my stomach is doing flips. And my face is getting really hot, and I am so very, very happy every time I see you. It is like, she paused. I am wanting to hug you. And also, she paused, not finishing what she was saying as if she was nervous. The way she described her feelings for him made his face glow. He listened intently, not interrupting or correcting. He let her finish. He had assumptions about what she was about to say, but waited to hear if she would actually say it. When she didn't, he instead moved his hand up and gently held the side of her face. Sometimes, it is easier to say what we mean without using words. He gazed at her for a moment, then slowly started leaning his face toward hers. She pulled her head back, away from him at first. She was nervous. She had never done anything like this before. But she looked up at Ferdinand, and her face softened. She gripped the front of his shirt delicately and leaned in, giving him a kiss. He initially thought he had offended her, and he wasn't going to go through with it if she didn't want to, but he was pleasantly surprised when she kissed him, so he kissed her back for a little while. After, he gazed at her for a moment with a dreamy look in his eyes before moving his head back. Yes. Petra smiled. It seems to me you have been catching on to my feelings. She spoke softly. I am caring for you a lot, Ferdinand. Thank you for everything you have been doing for me in the past few months, she said. She placed her hand on his cheek. You are so beautiful to me. Ferdinand smiled after hearing her compliment. Well, I hope that my beauty comes from the inside as well. I put a lot of effort into looking captivating each day, but that matters not if my heart is not in the right place, he said. I am captivated by your outward beauty as well, but it is your genuine heart, your spirit that made me fall for you. Oh yes. That's what I am saying. The way you are teaching me new cultures, and bringing me places you know I will enjoy. Trading weapons with me. She said, just to be naming a few. She giggled, pulling him into a hug. I promise to always treat you with great care, Petra. And to make your stay in Fodlan enjoyable despite being here against your will. He hugged her back. He wanted to tell her how adorable he thought she was, but he kept it to himself for now. He would have more chances to gush about her later. And to think he wouldn't have given her the chance if he didn't see her journal entries. She said, I have been thinking, maybe, it's not so bad to be living in Fodlan for the rest of my life. She spoke quietly. I understand that Bridget is my home, but people like you are making Fodlan a home for me as well, she explained. You would stay in Fodlan if it meant being able to remain close with me? Petra, what an honorable thing to say, he said, but found himself frowning. I want you to be able to return home someday. Bridget is where you belong, you are its heart and soul. Allow me to reunite you with your homeland, he said. Plus, I would love to visit Bridget myself. Maybe even spend a good amount of time there learning the language, immersing myself in the rich culture I have heard so much about. Petra beamed up at him. I was thinking you might never ask to come to Bridget. I'm so glad you are wanting to. She gave him one last lovey squeeze before letting go and backing up. There is so much that I am wishing to show you, she told him. I think it wouldn't hurt for us to represent the strong bond between Bridget and the Empire after I am being free, of course, she explained. Our bond will be monumental for Bridget and the Empire. I, the future Prime Minister of Adrestia, and you, the Queen of Bridget, our nations will coexist in peace for generations to come. He wanted to kiss her again, but he didn't, because he wanted to keep having a meaningful conversation. Plus, he thought it would be rude to just interrupt her out of nowhere with a kiss. He didn't want to make her think the only reason he liked her was because he wanted to kiss her. Petra smiled. Do you know what Dorothea was telling me? She said that I am the princess that every little girl is dreaming to be. She said, it made my heart feel happiness. But it saddens me to think that nobody is knowing the true reason I am here. Her smile faded slightly. I am not wanting to be mean, but sometimes I am very much disliking Edelgard. The princess every young girl dreams of. Well, you certainly harbor all of the qualities of a good role model. Whether you like it here or not, you are a model leader, he said. Mean? Petra, everyone has people they get along with, and people they don't. Edelgard? She is my esteemed rival. Anything she can do, I can do better. This seemed to be a topic he felt very passionately about. When you dislike a person, it is always polite not to let them know you dislike them. Especially when it comes to nobility, we must treat each other with utmost respect even if we bear ill will in thought. I was taught proper decorum from a young age. You see, you become more favorable when you face everyone with a smile and some kind words, even if you do not mean it. I can tell that you are meaning it when you are speaking with me, she told Ferdinand, placing her hand gently over his. But when I am speaking with Edelgard, her voice is sounding full of hate. Not towards me, just, for the world. Do you have understanding? Actually, now that you mention it, that does make a lot of sense, he said, nodding. In fact, I better keep a close eye on her from now on. I get what you mean by that. It is something I haven't quite picked up on before. She replied, it's been having me worried. At times, I even feel unsafe around her. All of this has started only recently. But, it saddens me all the same. If you should ever feel unsafe in any given situation, come find me. I will provide you with protection, though I know you are more than capable of protecting yourself. I just, never want you to ever feel unsafe as long as you are here. The least I can do is be there for you. Always. Petra nodded. And you do the same. I have been hearing Edelgard complaining about you to Hubert. Complaining about Bernadetta and Dorothea as well. It saddens me that she would be speaking of her friends this way. What? Complaining? About me. All I have ever done was exhibit the true example of nobility. I do not see how that is something to complain about. He frowned. And Dorothea? She certainly has not done anything to deserve complaints. If she starts complaining about you, well, then we will have a problem. And I will step in and take care of it, if need be. Petra sighed. She says things like we are not being serious enough. Or that we care too much for our social lives and do not want to get stronger. Petra said, in times of fighting, I think it is important to be having friends. Don't you? I think so too, Petra. Especially now, when things are so dark. It has been one thing after another the whole time we have been at the monastery. If we all had to face such grim happenings alone, I do not think any of us would make it out alive. No. Things just seem to be getting worse, she said. I hope that we find the beginning of the Dark Mage issue and be taking down the source of the problem. I do too. If we do that, then our life here at school would be much easier. Although I do feel a strong sense of duty to protect the people of Fodlan, I also wish for peace. If I am always fighting, that means my people never catch a break from feeling fear. I do not want that for them. I think we are going to be strong, inspiring leaders, Ferdinand. Petra smiled. Ah, I also hope you did not sustain many injuries in the battle. She looked him up and down. Not a single scratch, he assured her. I was on top of my game during that last fight. I do not think I have been in better form. He smiled. I see you have sustained some minor scratches, though. Are you feeling all right? I suppose if you were worse you would be in the medical wing. I am all right. She nodded. I have had worse injuries. This is nothing, she said, shaking her head. I am just hoping everyone in the infirmary is getting the care they deserve. A few of our classmates suffered terrible injuries in that last fight. I can only pray that they recover swiftly, Ferdinand said with a slight frown. I am just glad you emerged unscathed. I would be beside myself with worry if you ended up in the hospital. I do not like going to the infirmary. Seeing people sitting beside their injured loved ones makes my heart being ached, she said sadly. Fortunately, I have not had to face a terrible injury yet, one inflicted upon myself or a good friend of mine. Hopefully it stays that way. He said, I'll make sure you do not end up there, for sure. And I will be doing the same for you. Petra exclaimed. I have a feeling there will be many more battles like this in our future. Let us face them together. Nothing can stand in our way. Ferdinand took both of her hands and gave them a little love squeeze. He didn't want to leave, although he knew it was probably time for him to head out. He was just so happy to be with Petra. She smiled again. Ferdinand. Her face went red. You are making my cheeks be blushing. She giggled. I enjoy hearing you say that we are together. And I enjoy telling you that we shall forever remain together. He smiled, still holding her hands. Except, it is getting late. And I fear our time together must end for a short period of time, he said. But of course we'll see each other again tomorrow. Right. Yes. Of course we will be seeing each other tomorrow. She laughed. Ah, I'm missing you already, Ferdinand. She joked, clutching her heart. Ferdinand laughed at her joke. I have not even left yet. He said, but I guess it shows just how much you care about someone if you anticipate missing them before they have even left. I will take that as a compliment. He smiled, then gave her another kiss on the back of her hand, right on top of the marking she tattooed onto her skin. Have a nice night, Petra. Thank you for everything. He delicately released her hand, then backed out the door. Petra closed the door behind him, then immediately melted into her bed. She loved Ferdinand so much. That night, for once, there were no problems at the monastery. How rare. Chapter 92, Hello, Fall. The next morning came. Seath was putting up a sign on his office door that said, Hello Fall, with orange leaves and a scarecrow sitting on a pumpkin. Flane was putting up fall window stickies on the window beside his office door. She was sitting on the ground, flipping through pages of stickers. Seath also let her put up dinosaur, ocean, and farm animal stickies. Maybe she wanted to stack the chickens on top of one another and have them go ahem 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 cock-a-doodle-doo. Father, look. Flane said, pointing to the window. There was an octopus sticky, and on each tentacle she put a different colored leaf. Do you like this? She asked. Seath chuckled. Yes. Oh Flane, that is hilarious. I did that because it is autumn now, and this octopus loves the season so much that he grew leaves from his arms. She laughed, putting a light blue flower in a random spot on the window. She went to grab a dinosaur sticker from the pack, then suddenly screamed and drew her hand back. Ow. Father. She sniffled. Seath wrote down what she said about the octopus in a notebook. He wanted to remember her idea so he could write a story about it later. As he was putting up a pumpkin decoration, he heard her cry of pain and rushed to her side at once. Flane. What's the matter? He put his hands on her shoulders, then noticed that she was trying to pull out a Stegosaurus sticker, which had sharp edges. Oh dear. Did it catch under your nail? He asked, holding her hand to examine it. Flane began to cry. I was grabbing a dinosaur one a and the tail poked me really hard. She sniffled. There was a tiny blood bubble under her nail. Come now. He guided her into his office and sat her on his desk. He took out a first aid kit and pulled out a silver sparkle band-aid like the doctors always have, and he put it over her finger. There. He gave her finger a little kiss. It's just a little boo-boo. You'll be all right. Flane sniffled and rubbed her eyes. She smiled when he kissed it. Oh. All better. She giggled, and hugged him. Thank you, Father. I needed that. He hugged her and patted her on the back. See? All better. Here, he handed her a little pair of tweezers. Use this to dislodge the stickies instead of your fingers. That should help. He put her back on the ground. Now let's finish decorating, shall we? Yes. We shall. Flane moved back over to the little window and didn't have another sticky incident the whole time they were decorating. Meanwhile, Yuri was in the kitchen, doing some dishes. Yuri. Constance came up behind him. I need to have a talk with you. Yuri was trying really hard to get some brown grime off of a plate. What even is this? How did someone manage to? He stuck his tongue out of the corner of his mouth as he scrubbed, but was interrupted by Constance. Can it wait until I'm finished with these dishes, or is it urgent? What? Constance frowned. Are you incapable of listening while doing other tasks? She asked him. Yuri was a little offended by that. Fine. What's so important that you need to interrupt my chores to tell me? He set the clean dishes aside, and started cleaning off the last of the dirty ones. If this is about another spell. It is not about another spell, mind you. And even if it was, it would be in your best interest to at least feign concern for my hobbies. She sighed. This is about Ferdinand. Remember how you made us a meal to share the other night? Your spells are magnificent, Constance. You know I support your hobby. Honestly, I see it as more of a career path than a hobby for you. He kept washing. I remember. Did something turn out not quite right? I made sure to follow the recipe the way I normally do. I sure hope nothing was undercooked. The last thing I need to hear is that you or he got food poisoning. Or something. He looked at her with concern. No, the food was fine. Actually, it was magnificent. Perfect in every way. But Ferdinand turned down my idea for a fleeting school romance. She complained. Yuri took his rubber gloves off and set them aside. He turned you down? Wow. I can't say I was expecting that. No offense, but a person has to be blind to turn you down. You're clearly beautiful and your wit is sharper than a blade. He'll regret that someday, I'm sure. Constance's eyes widened. Yuri. You flatter me. She blushed. Thank you. But, alas, his heart belongs to another. I cannot take him away from her. She said with a small sigh. Seems to me my dream will never come true. Yuri asked, what does wooing Ferdinand have to do with your dream of restoring House Novelli? He started putting away his cleaning supplies, then washed his hands, using some nice-smelling hand soap. It was the kind where the plastic fishy is in the dispenser. What can I do to ease your heartache? He suddenly froze because that was the same exact thing he said to Sylvain. I mean, what can I do for you, Constance? Constance frowned. I can have more than one dream, you know. She rebutted. And did Happy bring back more of that clownfish hand soap? Ah. We can always count on her. She shook her head. Never mind that, though I do not know. Ferdinand was the only student here who caught my eye. You'll have time to fall for someone new, I'm sure. What about Ferdinand caught your eye? He can't be all that great. Yeah, he's the perfect picture of a noble. He matches your confidence. He's beautiful, strong, and kind, but there are more fish in the sea. He held out the soap that had the fish in it, then set it back down. Who's he courting instead? I'm not sure. Constance replied. But, you pretty much nailed everything that had caught my eye. She chuckled. I really do not know where to go from here, to be honest. She frowned. Maybe Edelgard? No. That's stupid. Linhard? No. He is too sleepy. What about Prince Dmitri? He suggested. Actually, maybe not. I tried a pickup line on him and left him utterly confused. What about Lawrence? I can see you two making a pretty good pair, if things go smoothly. He shrugged. Now that I think about it, Ferdinand is a tough contender. Lawrence is, she sighed, not the most flattering to look at. She frowned. Ferdinand was perfect. Who knows what could have come from a relationship between the two of us? Yuri couldn't help but laugh at her comment. We can't all be blessed with good looks. He'd be mortified to hear you say that, I think. He smiled, leaning against the counter. Ferdinand is pretty perfect. I feel for you, Constance. You deserve someone like him. A good man is hard to find, these days. You are so right. She said, leaning beside him. I think the only person at this point who would even consider it is Balthus, unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons I'm sure. You don't want to get yourself into any business with Balthus. I mean that in the nicest way possible. He sighed. Who knows? Maybe Ferdinand will eventually fall for your charms. You never know, not all relationships end with a happily ever after. That could certainly be true for him. He said, who else is available right now? Raphael? I'm not so sure he's your type. Hubert? I can, sort of see it. There's me. He laughed a little. Of course you could always try for Dorothea. Possibly Ingrid, if she's your type. Yes. I will admit I was charmed by Dorothea the last time we spoke. But she is a commoner. She continuously told me not to speak of House Novelli around her. I do not want to offend her. But I have been chatting with her very often. And I have been trying to win over Ignatz. No luck. Ignatz is already partnered up with Marianne. That's probably why you continue to have bad luck with him. He shrugged. I don't know what else to tell you, Constance. Except for this: sometimes, good things come to those who wait. Patience is a virtue. Constance sighed, but I do not want to be patient. I was someone to hold me. And kiss me. And sneak through the halls with me. You understand, don't you? Actually, I do. That does sound rather fun. I'd offer to help you with that, but I want you to find real love. He said, because that's what you deserve. And I'd love to be that friend you come to talk about all of your romantic adventures with. He chuckled. She looked at him with a smile. You will always be the first to know, Yuri. You know that. She said, though. I would be lying if I said I wasn't ready to leave this school. To move on to bigger things. You want to leave Abyss? He asked, suddenly frowning. Or am I misinterpreting what you just said? He tilted his head in concern. Yes. She said, you heard me correctly. I do not want to leave you guys. No, not at all. But, a girl can only take so much, being so restricted from the world. She shook her head. I get it. As much as I love to call Abyss my home, sometimes it can get a bit stuffy down there. Some fresh air is nice every now and then. It's hard to pursue your dreams when you're stuck underground the whole time. He paused. I'm not going to stop you if you dream of leaving. But I will say this, you will be missed. Greatly. She linked her arm to his. Excuse you for ever thinking I will be going anywhere in life without you. You are my partner in crime, dear Yuri. She told him. Where you go I go. He gave her a little nudge. Funny you'd say that, because I'm an actual criminal. But just because I'm a bad guy doesn't mean I'm a bad guy. He said, probably because he learned a thing or two from Zangief. I've always got your back. Even when it comes to things like affairs of the heart. I know you do. And I have not doubted you for a moment. She said. Happy walked into the room. She looked tired, and her hair was a mess. What are you doing? She asked, looking at them with their arms linked. Just having a heart-to-heart. What are you doing? Yuri asked her. You look like you just woke up. It's well past breakfast. I was just doing the dishes. There are some leftovers in the pantry if you're interested. Sorry I overslept a little. She said sarcastically, walking over to the pantry and taking out a muffin. I just want this. Thanks though. She eyed Yuri as she walked by. Constance asked, have you seen Balthus today? Happy shook her head. Nope. It's all yours, Happy. He said to her, giving her a little nod as she walked past. He wasn't oblivious that she kept looking at him and getting nervous around him. It had been happening ever since the day they made the cake. I haven't seen him either. He's probably out wasting money somewhere. He sighed. Happy frowned. Hey, lay off. He's not irresponsible all the time, she mumbled. Constance raised her eyebrows. I actually think he is. You're the only one who thinks that, Happy. Yuri laughed. Believe me, he even knows it. Doesn't mean we don't love him, though. Right. He looked between them. Ha. Speak for yourself. Constance joked. Happy took a bite of her muffin. Seriously guys? Why are you never nice to him? I'm sorry but he's always the butt end of your jokes. We're not being mean. Balthus laughs at this kind of stuff. I think he laughs at himself more than any of us do. Yuri said, just saying. Whatever. I didn't wake up to listen to this. She walked away. Constance gave Yuri a look. I don't know what that was about, but I'm on your side right now. She assured him. If Yuri put a jump rope in the middle of the basement, Constance would go to her side. Yeah, that was strange. I wonder what's putting her on edge. Probably nothing. Hopefully she's not in a mood, otherwise we might have to watch our backs for monsters. I'll have a little chat with her later. She'll come around, I'm sure of it. Constance stepped away from him. Well, that was all I came to chat with you about. I have some work I must do. If you need anything else, you know where to find me. I hope things sway in your direction, Constance. He took out some more cleaning supplies. I have some chores to do in the meantime. But, have a nice day. Okay. She nodded. Good luck, Yuri. She waved to him, and headed back off to her room to work on some spells. Chapter 93, It's All My Fault. Then, afternoon came around. Dmitri was on his way back from town since he just ran some errands. Your Highness. Dida was in town. He was better from his cold. He smiled at him. What have you gotten in town today? Dmitri was carrying a stack of firewood, and it was just about to topple over. Didu, oh. Didu. It's been a while since I've seen you out and about. Are you feeling better? He asked, steadying the logs so that they wouldn't fall. I'm just on my way back from gathering some pre-chopped wood and some spices for the pantry. Didu grabbed a large stack of the wood so it would be easier for Dmitri to carry. Yes. I am feeling much better, he said. It looks like you could use some help over here. Thank you for the help. And I'm glad that you're feeling better. Dmitri gave Didu a smile, then continued walking again so that he could put all of his supplies down. In fact, I've been secretly frustrated with the length of your cold. Every day, I was wishing for you to get better so that we may be able to do something nice together again. Oh, Your Highness, that's very sweet of you. I have been feeling the same way. Did you have anything in mind? Didu asked curiously. Not necessarily. But should the opportunity arise for us to spend some time together, I'm glad we'll both be in good health, Dmitri said. And next time we decide to go out, I'll be sure to check the weather so that you don't catch another cold. Is there a campfire happening soon? Didu asked. Is this what all the wood is for? Fall is approaching. I heard that Seath is preparing a harvest festival for all of us to partake in. There will be activities such as candy making, apple bobbing, pumpkin carving, oh, and a wagon ride. Doesn't that sound sort of fun? Dmitri asked. Didu was so excited about the wagon ride. Oh, yes it does, Your Highness. Shall we pick out a pumpkin to carve together soon? He asked. He hoped the festival would pass by without any drama, but knowing the students, there was no way that was gonna happen. I think we should. But I think that I will leave the carving part to you. I'm not so good at being delicate. I'll probably end up smashing the pumpkin by accident if you let me do it. Dmitri let out a small chuckle. Didu laughed as well. Maybe you have a point. I'll guide your hand. We can do it together, he offered. My hands are always pretty unsteady, especially when it comes to intricate work. I assume that it's due to all of the stress that I face on a daily basis. But I find my hands steadier with you around. Dmitri took out the little jar of spice that he got in town for the pantry. There was a little seal wrapped around it, and he tried peeling it off, but the glass just shattered in his grip. Ouch! He dropped it, and it broke even more at his feet. There were tiny shards of glass stuck in his hands, and he started bleeding. See what I mean? Oh dear, Your Highness. Didu immediately scooped Dmitri up and held him. Are you all right? He looked to Anna, who happened to be standing near her market stall. Please clean this up. He began rushing to the infirmary. He was making such a big deal out of Dmitri's little injury. Come on, Your Highness, you'll be all right. He gently laid him down in a hospital bed. Felix looked for one moment, rolled his eyes, and looked away again. Ingrid sat up, watching intently. Sylvain just started laughing when he saw Dmitri being held like a baby. It's just a few Didu, I haven't injured my legs. I can walk fine on my own, Didu. Put me down. Dmitri didn't hold on to Didu because his hands were cut up and had small shards of glass stuck in them, but he didn't try to get away either. Dmitri sat up even though Didu laid him down. It's just a minor injury. I wasn't even planning on spending more than a minute here. I appreciate your immediate, intensive response, but I am fine. I promise. He frowned. I just need some bandages for my hands once I've made sure all the glass is safely thrown away. A few medics showed up and began removing the glass from his hands. They used some healing magic and put some bandages around his fingers. He was already cleared to leave. That was close, Your Highness. I'm glad you're alright, Dida said. I can take dash. Suddenly, it sounded like there was an argument going on outside. A girl's voice could be heard shouting and screaming. Through the window of the infirmary, Marianne and Lysithea could be seen outside. I can assure you, it looked worse than it actually was. I've been through worse than a few small scrapes. Dmitri looked toward the window, wondering what the arguing was all about. He walked closer to it, then took a peek at what was going on. Lysithea was in a wheelchair, and she was all bandaged up from the demonic beast attack. Marianne was standing on a high ledge overlooking a rocky cliff, her back to Lysithea. It seemed like Marianne didn't listen to Sylvain's words and she was going to jump. Lysithea was screaming at her to get down. Marianne! This isn't funny. Get down from there right now. Dmitri gasped. Oh, Marianne, no. He started sprinting out of the infirmary as fast as he could. Sylvain assumed what was going on by Dmitri's reaction, so he guiltily covered his face with his hands and closed his eyes. Raphael was walking past at the time. There was a bird on a branch near him. Oh. Hey little birdie. I was just on my way to see Marianne. I don't know what you're saying. But I'll make sure to relay the message to her. He saluted the bird before it flew off, then arrived on the scene. What the? Oh no. He charged straight for Marianne. Be careful up there. Wait. I have a message for you. He called up to her, Marianne. Felix sat up. Holy shit, he watched from the window, glancing occasionally at Sylvain to see if he was watching. Marianne turned around and looked down at them. Her face looked emotionless. Raphael. Lysithea, she spoke quietly. Lysithea yelled at her, Marianne. What is wrong with you? Get down. Raphael knew what was happening, but he didn't want to just scream stop at her like everyone else. He raised his voice as he called up to her. So, I saw a little birdie earlier. He told me he couldn't wait to see you again. He cleared his throat. This bird, yeah, he told me he's always real happy to see you every day. He loves it when you walk by, and give him treats, and when you stop by just to say hi. He looked between her and the ledge. And he loves it when you're happy. He says he doesn't see you smile that much, but when you do, it makes everyone else smile too. And if you never walked by again, he'd be pretty upset about it. In fact, all the birds in the world would be upset about it, not just that one. Marianne watched Raphael. She didn't move for a moment, but then she began sobbing. She slowly stepped down from the ledge. The birds. She sniffled, averting her eyes from anyone around her. Raphael responded. Yup. Nobody understands them as much as you do, except I guess I do, 'cause they all just told me that, he said. The birds sure do love you. He gave her a big smile. Lysithea began harshly yelling at her, Marianne. Seriously? What is wrong with you? How selfish can you be? This is the second time you've tried to end your life. And Sylvain in between. There's something seriously wrong with you guys. She started heavily crying. There are people in the infirmary fighting for their lives, and you have the nerve to try and end yours so early. I mean, some people don't have as long to live as other people do, Marianne. Marianne held her face in her hands. I figured nobody would care. Shut up. Just shut up. Lysithea screamed through her tears. You don't understand how much worse other people have it than you. Just then, Hilda and Ignatz arrived, taking Marianne in their arms. Lysithea. Ignatz snapped. See, cut it out. Lysithea did not, in fact, cut it out. You act like your life isn't a gift. Like you don't have so many years to live out the rest of your days. Not everyone has that opportunity. Raphael's jaw dropped when Lysithea just started yelling at Marianne. Hey. I kinda took care of it already, thanks for trying to help, but, he looked between them. Sylvain heard everything that was going on and hid under the blankets. Lawrence overheard everything that was going on. Good heavens, how barbarous. This is no way to settle a dispute. It should be handled calmly, in a restrained manner. He walked over to the scene. Lysithea, it seems that poor Marianne has been through enough today. Would you care to accompany me elsewhere so that you may let off a bit of steam? No. No, 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 you guys don't understand. Lysithea screamed. She tried to wheel away from Lawrence, but she was too weak to move anywhere else. Ignatz looked at Lawrence and Raphael. Thank you. Both of you, we'll take Marianne from here, all right? Raphael, please meet us in the Golden Deer classroom. He and Hilda began leading Marianne away. Marianne's shoulders were hunched with sadness as she began slowly walking with her two best friends. She twisted around to glance at Raphael for a moment before turning back around. Hilda spoke gently to her. Marianne. Please don't do this. I know things seem hard right now. I get it, but, she trailed off, realizing that she had no way to relate to how Marianne might be feeling. Marianne sniffled. Lysithea is right. How disrespectful of me. Why would I ever think that anyone would care that much for me? Ignatz shook his head. No, you're misunderstanding. Please Marianne, you've got to understand dash. Marianne snatched her arm away from Ignatz. I would like Hilda to walk me to the classroom, please. Just Hilda. Ignatz's arms dropped to his sides. Oh. All right. Hilda gave Ignatz a look before continuing off with Marianne. Lawrence took hold of Lysithea's wheelchair and started wheeling her away. I do understand your point, but the fact that you are raising your voice at a person facing inner turmoil is most unsettling. Harsh words may work for you, but Marianne is a gentle creature. He brought her around the corner. Lysithea put her face in her hands. No. Lawrence. You guys really don't understand. You don't. She cried. You never will. You're all just selfish, especially Marianne. Sylvain, too. Maybe I do not know the full extent of your frustration, but I do know that yelling will get you nowhere. Talk to me like an adult, Lawrence told her. Use proper decorum. Properly enunciate your words at the appropriate volume. He waited for her to calm down. He wasn't being rude, or trying to be, he just wanted her to be able to talk to him while level-headed. And now you're calling me a child. Stop, Lawrence. Just stop, take me back to the infirmary. I want to go back. She pouted. Lawrence started taking Lysithea back to the infirmary. He didn't stop talking to her, though. I understand that you mean well. I really do. But, there is no need to behave in such a chaotic manner. He told her. It got hard when he made it to the steps, since there was no ramp to wheel her up. Ugh. I shall make a request to make this place more accessible. Lysithea became silent. She just held onto the arms of the wheelchair, and as they got near her bed she mumbled, "Thank you, Lawrence." Lawrence dropped her off at her bedside, and even fetched her a cup of fresh water. Should you need someone to wheel you around, you need only call the one and only, Lawrence Hellman Gloucester. He said, "Think about what I said and reflect upon your actions as you get a good rest, yes." He walked away. Lysithea stared at the door where Lawrence had left. She wanted him to stay, because the image of Marianne standing up on the ledge remained burned into her mind. Ingrid was laying on her side with her eyes closed lightly and her hands pressed over her ears, like she was afraid. Felix pushed himself to his feet, and began slowly limping across the room. He didn't go to comfort Ingrid though, he instead went over to Sylvain. He sat down heavily on the edge of Sylvain's bed, wincing. He couldn't see what part of him was which, but he set his hand down gently on top of the blankets. Sylvain felt Felix's hand on his side, so he slowly peeled the blankets away. He didn't realize it was Felix until he saw him. "What are you doing? Aren't you hurt?" His eyes were shiny. He had a bit of a crying problem lately. He noticed Ingrid's reaction, which made him upset to see as well. "It doesn't matter," Felix said. "You're worse than I am." He wanted to provide as much comfort to Sylvain as he could. "You're okay, he said, not removing his hand. Sylvain closed his eyes again. I caused this, he muttered. If I didn't do it, nobody would be in this mess right now. He didn't want Felix to leave his side. You're wrong, Felix said. You can't go changing the past. So stop dwelling on it. Sylvain replied, everything's coming back to bite me now, isn't it? He sighed. I feel lousy again. I'm not asking you to say great things about me, but sometimes I just need to hear that it's okay to make mistakes, or that I'm not just taking up space, stuff like that. Felix frowned. God, Sylvain, what about anything I've ever said to you makes you feel like you're a waste of space? He knew the answer though. Just, it's okay to make mistakes of course. But not when they cost you your life. Sylvain wanted to pull Felix down into his arms for a hug, but knew that would put too much strain on his wound, so he didn't. He let out a long sigh. See, now this is one of those times I wish I could just feel nothing. But at the same time I want to feel everything if it means I could just forget the rest of the world and just spend time with you. He kept his face covered with his hands. Sylvain. Felix grabbed Sylvain's wrists gently and moved them onto his chest. Stop. We're going to be fine. He leaned down and kissed him. He didn't care how many people were there. He didn't care how many people saw. He was tired of hiding. Sylvain resisted when Felix tried to move his hands away at first, but he eventually gave in and let him. He wasn't expecting a kiss right then and there, but he accepted it. He moved one of his hands up so that he was holding onto Felix's arm instead. Felix pulled away slightly. Just, stop talking this way. I can't handle seeing you like this. He spoke quietly. Sorry, Sylvain said, looking up at him. I'm so sorry Felix, he gripped tighter onto his shirt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, he was starting to get really worked up. Hey, stop, Felix said softly, putting his hand gently on Sylvain's cheek. Stop it, he said again, because he knew if Sylvain cried again, he would probably start as well. After hearing what Lysithea just said, after that? And Marianne, how could I not be sorry? I owe you more apologies than I owe anybody else. I'm a selfish jerk. There is something seriously wrong with me. She was right. He wasn't crying, but he was a bit unsteady. Sylvain, stop. There is nothing wrong with you. You wouldn't have done those things if I didn't, he took a deep breath. If I didn't say those things I didn't mean back then. I'm the selfish one. I'm the one who made you want to die. It sounded like he was having a really hard time saying these things. You thought you were doing me a favor. And that's my fault. Sylvain looked away, and it took him a while to answer. Hey Felix, he said, softly. Felix asked in reply, gently giving him head scratches like he used to when they first started dating. Sylvain really liked when Felix scratched the head. He closed his eyes. This didn't start because of you, you know. Well, I guess part of it was because we fought, but it goes back further. He paused. My father. Miklon. All of the girls I've dated in the past. It started with them. Not you. They're the ones who almost put me 6 feet under, not you. Okay? I just need you to know that. You've had things so hard. Ever since we were children, Felix said. It sounds stupid, but I want to give you a life where you don't have to worry about anything anymore. It can be just the two of us. And my blade, I would never allow anything else to happen to you ever again, he said, anger in his voice. That sounds like a life I could get used to. Just you and me. I hope that blade of yours is fine with being the third wheel. Sylvain cracked a small smile, but it faded just as quickly as it came. We need this future. And it can't happen if I'm dead. So I'm gonna keep living. 'Cause the life I still have to live is more important to me than the life I've already lived. You know I'm not leaving your side now, right? Felix said. Out of nowhere he got a little goofy, definitely trying desperately to cheer Sylvain up. He never acted like this. He wriggled himself into bed beside Sylvain, despite how bad it was hurting his neck and leg, and smushed his cheek against Sylvain's. I'm not leaving. I'm staying here. Like this. Forever. He hoped it would make Sylvain laugh. Sylvain wasn't expecting that, and it definitely made him smile, and he wondered where all this playfulness suddenly came from. Felix. He wasn't used to him acting like this. It was usually him who tried to make light of the situation. He let a burst of laughter escape, unable to hold it in any longer. Okay, you're weirding me out. He turned his head a little so that his lips were against Felix's cheek, and he gave him a kiss. That's okay. 'Cause I didn't want you to leave anyway. Good, Felix said, turning his cheek and pressing his lips against Sylvain's. We need to recover soon. He mumbled against Sylvain's lips, I can't stand another day without you. Circumstances just love to keep us apart, huh? Well, once we've both recovered, we can finally go live that life we've been talking about. He gave Felix another little kiss. Felix smiled slightly. Yeah, finally, he whispered. He pushed himself into a sitting position. Look, I know I said I'm not leaving you again, but I need to go back to my bed. Because my wounds are hurting. And, he blushed. Just because of my wounds. That's all. He stood up and began limping towards his bed. Ugh. Fine. I can't wait for us to be done with school so we can just share a bed every night. Sylvain laid with his hands behind his head. I know I can be annoying sometimes, but I'll make sure you never get sick of me. He gave Felix a look before he went back to his own bed. He felt a lot better after spending some time with Felix. Felix laid down in his bed, but found that he couldn't take his eyes off Sylvain. Even in his most vulnerable state he still loved him. Luckily, Dimitri walked back in and noticed that Ingrid was having a hard time. Since there was nobody else to provide her with comfort, he sat beside her as well and gently placed his hand on her back. Dida decided he would stock the pantry with the things Dimitri bought, and give him some alone time with Ingrid. Ingrid opened her eyes at the feel of his touch, and slowly took her hands off her ears. Dimitri, is it over? Is everyone okay? She asked quietly. For now, yes, Dimitri said, giving her a light pat on the back. You seemed distressed when I walked in, so I came to offer you comfort. Ingrid looked up at him. Thank you. I appreciate it, Dimitri. She didn't want Dimitri to leave her side. Dimitri looked back at her. You're welcome. Is there anything I can do for you, besides remain close? He asked. No, Ingrid said. This is all I need from you. Today has been difficult. Dimitri gently rubbed her back. It seems a majority of our days have been difficult as of late. But think of the last time you felt happy and just focus on that. Maybe tell me about it, if it will get your mind off of things. The day we spent together in town. By the bridge, Ingrid said softly, without hesitation. Dimitri nodded, recalling the day. He didn't acknowledge the thing that happened that day that they were probably both thinking about, but he kept talking with her. I could tell, that day, that you were happy. Ingrid looked up at him worriedly. Were you not happy? She asked quietly. Dimitri stopped rubbing her back, looking down at her the same time she looked up at him. What? No, of course I was happy. I was happy to secure a place for you at my side, he told her, matching her tone. Ah, yes. I would hope so, Ingrid said softly. I'm sorry. For that day. She had to bring it up eventually. Dimitri gently shook his head, looking down at her. What are you apologizing for? Nobody should be sorry for holding affection for another person, at least, that's how I choose to look at it. He said, I am honored. Ingrid for some reason, smiled slightly. I knew I didn't have a chance. Dimitri didn't smile back. He was confused about her smile, but didn't ask why. Ingrid, he continued, I want you to be happy. I feel as though I have invalidated your heart's desire, and that doesn't sit right with me. What good is a king if he can't fulfill his people, his most trusted friends? What? You're saying all of this just because you don't return my affection? With all due respect, your highness, romance is the least of my concerns. That was a lie though. Dimitri sighed. I'm sorry to say, but it didn't seem that way when you kissed me, he said. Ingrid let out a deep sigh. I'm sorry. I didn't know if it meant the same thing to you as it meant to me. I know now I was right. Dmitri replied, although our feelings are unmatched, you still mean a great deal to me. I hope you always know that. He looked down at her, then took her by the hand. Dmitri, you will always mean more to me than I do to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just needed you to know. Her hand was shaking. A serious look took over Dmitri's face. He paused, noticing how much her hand was trembling. He held her hand a bit tighter, just staring at the center of the room for a little while before looking back at Ingrid. He kissed the top of her hand, then gently set it back down. Ingrid's cheeks went pink. Your Highness, that is, she trailed off. Thank you. Really? But this is not necessary. It's the least I can do. It's what Glenn would have wanted. If he can't make you happy anymore, then, it's up to me. He said. I can almost hear him saying, too. His voice faded. But, you can't be the one to protect her anymore. He wasn't even talking to her anymore, it seemed. Ingrid forced herself to sit up. Ow. Dmitri. She frowned. Stop this. You are not Glenn. Glenn is gone. This isn't what he would want, she told him, realizing that he was having an episode. Really? Dmitri suddenly snapped his attention back to her, blinking a few times. I'm sorry. I let my thoughts control me once again. Thank you for bringing me out of that. He shook his head. I do mean what I said, though, when I said you mean a great deal to me. You always will. He took another long pause. May I tell you why I cannot return your feelings? There's a reason other than the fact that you simply don't feel the same way. Ingrid asked. Sure. I'm willing to listen. She looked up at him. Dmitri nodded. It's Didu, he said, but didn't give any more context than that. He got a little nervous after he said it, like he wanted to take it back because he hadn't told anyone except for Claude. Ingrid smiled. Dmitri, you should have told me sooner. That's beautiful. I'm very, very happy for you too, she said. It's as if you were made for one another. Dmitri definitely wasn't expecting that reaction from her, but it filled him with relief to know she didn't seem devastated and that she didn't react poorly. Do you really think so? He asked, quietly, a very small smile on his face. I do. And I think the majority of the student body would agree. I've seen the way you look at each other. And, you're always holding hands. I figured there was something there, she explained. Oh, is it that obvious? Dmitri blushed a little. Well, your assumptions were right. Didu and we have a special connection. But I've been afraid to share this information or display public affections of any sort because of, well, you know how the tragedy of Dusker was received by the public, he sighed. Yes, I know all too well. Look. I'm sorry for the way I've treated Didu in the past. Really? I am. The two of us talked things out over tea one day. He really is a spectacular human being. He is, isn't he? Dmitri smiled a little bigger. I'm glad to hear you and him enjoyed a spot of tea. He felt a little selfish for gushing about Didu when Ingrid was so upset about not being able to be with him, but he just loved him so much. Actually, he suddenly seemed really embarrassed. Ingrid frowned. She could tell something was off. What's the matter, Dmitri? She asked him curiously. He looked to make sure that nobody was looking, and then he took something out of his pocket. It looked like a ring. He held it between his thumb and pointer finger, making sure that Ingrid was the only one who could see it. Whoa, Dmitri. Ingrid leaned forward, then backed up because it hurt her ribs. Are you going to propose? During school? Ingrid. Keep it down, please. Dmitri looked around, then quickly concealed the ring back in his palm. Is it too soon for that? I just don't see a reason to wait. Sylvain sat up. Is Dmitri getting married? He spoke loudly. Dmitri frowned. And no. Sylvain, go back to bed. Sylvain didn't listen. Who's the lucky girl? Dmitri just got even more embarrassed. Nobody. Sylvain, stop. Ingrid covered her mouth. I'm sorry, Dmitri. I didn't think Sylvain could hear me, she admitted. She laughed though. Come on, you know Sylvain would be happy for you. You know he would. Tell him who the lucky person is, she encouraged him. But I didn't mean for anyone to know I was thinking about a proposal, except for you, of course, Dmitri told her. I didn't even think you were dating anyone, Sylvain said. Seriously. This all came out of nowhere. Who is it? I gotta know. Can I be your best man? Dmitri sighed. If you stop asking questions, I'll tell you. But I don't want this information spreading around the school. My lips are sealed, Sylvain said. It's to do, Dmitri admitted. Sylvain looked shocked. Whoa. Okay, I knew you guys were close, but not that close. Wow. He laughed. Felix was laying on his side. He hated it, but he couldn't stop himself from smiling at the news. Dmitri. Ingrid smiled and reached out towards him, hoping he would take her hand. You know us. We would never spread this information around school, she told him. I am seriously, wholeheartedly, extremely happy for you. I think this is what you need. Dmitri took her by the hand, feeling a little better once he had a hand to hold. Obviously, I have no experience with this sort of thing. I can't foresee the answer to my question being no, but part of me is still nervous that I will make a fool out of myself. Or, perhaps it is too soon, we're both still in school. I say go for it before someone makes a choice for you, Sylvain suddenly cut in. You'll be happier. Trust me. Don't think about it, just walk straight up to him and tell him. But be romantic about it, of course. What's a proposal without romance? Not all proposals need to be romantic. Extravagant gestures are overwhelming, Sylvain, Ingrid said. I think you should do it in a place both of you hold dear. Where you're both comfortable. Don't try anything new. Sylvain said, what? Yes, they do. They should be either romantic, grand, or both. And then after the proposal, I think it's an unspoken rule that. Dmitri cut him off. You know what? Sylvain, I don't think I need to hear the rest of that. No offense. I think I am going to go with Ingrid's advice on this one. Not that your advice won't work for everyone. Sylvain shrugged. I'm just saying. If your plans don't work out, you can always fall back on that. Dmitri sighed. I've barely thought about how I am going to do it. I'll probably somehow mess up. Although Didu is very understanding. I don't know if I have to worry about that. Felix frowned. Who says you even need a proposal? If you're in love, then you'll just know. You don't need any gestures or anything, although they can be nice. Ingrid said, don't listen to them. Sylvain can't control himself when it comes to talking about love. She glared at him, then looked back at Dmitri. And don't worry about messing up. He loves you. He's going to say yes. Sylvain gave Felix a look after he said that, feeling his heart flutter, but Ingrid's comment made him look away. Hey. Who doesn't love talking about love? You've got love, and then you've got love. I can go on about both. Felix snorted a laugh. Dmitri took Ingrid's advice and just tried not to listen to Sylvain. When do you think I should propose, then? Should I wait until later in the year? Or, should I do it soon? Sylvain. Don't be vulgar, Ingrid scolded. She sighed. To answer your question, Dmitri, I think you should do it whenever it feels right. If you're ready now, then do it now. If not, there's no harm in waiting. Felix cut in. Don't wait. It's not worth it. Sylvain looked at Felix as he said that, his heart pounding. Felix made eye contact with Sylvain, then looked quickly away, his face red. Dmitri said, well, I won't wait too long. But I do want the timing to be just right. Whenever it happens, all I care about is making Didu happy. He enclosed the ring in his hand and held it to his heart. Ingrid smiled. Her heart ached like nothing she had ever felt before, but she was happy for him. She said, "This will make him happy. I know it will. A life with you and only you." She sighed. "He's going to be eternally happy." She paused. "And not that I would feel that way. I'm speaking for Didu. I hope that Didu and I will set a good example for Fairgus. I want my people to know that they are free to love whoever they choose. I am prepared for people to disagree, but I will not let that change my stance." Felix seemed to get angry all of a sudden. "Then what the hell are you waiting for? You need to do it. Now, Dmitri." He frowned. He looked at Ingrid, then back at Dmitri. "There's people out there being targeted and hurt because of who they choose to spend their lives with. Do something. Fix it. Seems like you're the only one who means enough to the country to actually create change." Dmitri nodded, understanding where Felix's anger was coming from. "The sooner I can take the throne, the better. At least, that's what everyone's been saying. I promise, the day will come. I cannot forcibly seize it from my uncle, but the throne is rightfully mine for the taking. I promise." Your words were taken to heart. Sylvain was oddly quiet through all this. "Dmitri, we need it now," Felix said. He gestured towards Sylvain. "We need it now," he repeated, quieter. Ingrid felt herself wanting to cry at her friends being so vulnerable with one another. She looked at Dmitri, a sad look on her face. Sylvain got a little choked up. He looked at Felix, then at Dmitri. "I don't know if I can rush the coronation process," Dmitri said, "but I promise I will make changes as soon as I am able to. I want to help you both. I feel powerless, watching my best friends struggle just because they share a deep bond with one another." He paused. "But I don't have to wait for my coronation to influence the people of the kingdom, or challenge the traditions of the church." Felix didn't say anything. He just looked at Sylvain's bandages, purposely avoiding his eyes because he was embarrassed after asking Dmitri for help. Ingrid said, "You are a great, and honorable man, Dmitri. I'm glad we signed our names on the bridge in your way, and not mine." She smiled. "I'm grateful for your support. All three of you," Dmitri told them. "And you will always receive mine in return. I will never stop thinking of ways to give back to you for all you've done. Ingrid, I will always have a spot for you by my side as my most trusted knight. Felix, Sylvain. I will transform the kingdom into a place where you no longer have to hide, or live in fear. I promise." He stood up. "You'll receive my thanks when the deed is done." Felix laid back down. He was intensely grateful though. Ingrid smiled. "Thank you, Dmitri. Hey, tell us how the proposal goes. We're rooting for you." Sylvain said, "Make sure you tell us all the details, yeah? Don't forget to be romantic. If you need any tips on setting the mood, I suggest you." "I don't need any tips. At least, I think I know what I'm doing," Dmitri said. "Thank you. Really. I'll be sure to tell you how things turn out." He smiled to himself, thinking of a future where he and Didu get to spend their lives happily together. He tucked the ring into his pocket. Just then, Didu walked into the infirmary. Chapter 94, I'm ready to tell. Ingrid looked at Sylvain excitedly when Didu entered the infirmary. "Your Highness." Didu walked over. "I decided to reorganize the pantry after you bought the new spices. It looks very nice now." He knew he couldn't taste, but he still said, "Maybe I could cook you something using them later this week." Sylvain exchanged a glance with Ingrid, wondering if they were about to actually watch the proposal happen right then and there. Dimitri's face turned pink when Didu showed up. He wasn't expecting that. "Oh. Didu. I was just wondering where you were, actually." He held his hands behind his back like he was hiding something, even though he wasn't even hiding the ring. It was safely resting in his pocket. "How thoughtful of you. You know I will always enjoy anything you prepare for me." He smiled. Sylvain whispered to Ingrid, "Should I remind him to be romantic? He looks nervous." Ingrid shook her head and mouthed back, "No." Didu smiled. "Also, I made you this. Your other one is withered." He took a blue and yellow flower crown out of his satchel and placed it on Dimitri's head. Ah, thank you very much, Didu. What a lovely surprise. Dmitri smiled, touching the crown as it rested on his head. You know, most stories of old depict the king wearing a crown of solid gold. I want my subjects to remember me like this, wearing a wreath of flowers hand-picked by his right-hand man. He looked at Didu with adoration. Didu smiled. I can make you 1,000, if you'd like. And never get tired of it. He reached out to embrace him, but realized that all of Dmitri's friends were around. He didn't want to embarrass him, so he backed up. Dmitri walked straight into Didu's arms and hugged him around the torso, gently closing his eyes. I'd never ask that much of you, but I'd appreciate it, nonetheless. He hugged Didu a little tighter than usual, partially because he was nervous, and partially because he just loved him so much. Your Highness, Didu hugged him, resting his chin on the top of Dmitri's head. Is everything all right? He asked. Are you worried about your friends? I'm always worried about my friends, Dmitri said, but they're all right at the moment. I just thought you deserved a nice hug in exchange for all that you've done for me today. He was thinking about taking out the ring, but getting lost in thought just made him hug Didu for too long. Didu smiled. I will always take a hug from you, Your Highness, he said. He was worried that Dmitri was having a hard day dealing with his mental health. Didu didn't let go either. Felix sighed, turning his back on them and closing his eyes. Sylvain looked at Ingrid and whispered, what's taking him so long? Also, he should have let go of the hug by now. There's such a thing as hugging for too long. Does he know that? I don't think he does. Ingrid smiled slightly. Stop it, it's cute, she whispered, pressing a finger to her lips to tell Sylvain to be quiet. Once I'm able to move around, I think it's up to me to give Dmitri a seminar on romance. Looks like he can use one, me and Felix can be the demonstration. Sylvain looked over to see if Felix was in on the conversation, but turned back around when he noticed he wasn't looking. Ingrid sighed. He doesn't need that. Especially from you, Sylvain. Felix's idea of romance is probably not the same as Dmitri's. You can already tell. Felix and I have a pretty good sense of it, though. Do you need a romance lesson, Ingrid? Sylvain was just being annoying at this point. Ingrid frowned. I literally could not care less about that, she said, glancing away towards Dmitri. Dmitri let go of Didu and fixed his crown. So. Didu, he was getting all awkward. Didu stepped back slightly. He just looked at Dmitri, waiting for him to say what he was going to say. Dmitri went to reach into his pocket for the ring, but stopped for some reason. He felt his pocket to make sure it was still there, and it was, but he froze up. And never mind. I swear, what I was going to tell you was on the tip of my tongue just a second ago. Okay. Didu looked a little bit confused. Are you feeling all right? You look very pale. Didu reached out and felt Dmitri's forehead with the back of his hand. You feel all right? Dmitri said, I look pale? Oh, it didn't occur to me that I seemed so. He trailed off. He realized that, as much as he wanted to make his friends and Didu very happy, it probably wasn't the best time to ask Didu to marry him. You know what? Why don't you help me settle in for a nap? I think that would do me some good. He gave an apologetic look back to his group of friends. Of course, Your Highness, Didu said sweetly. He put a hand on Dmitri's back and began leading him towards the door. Before they exited, he looked at Ingrid, Sylvain and Felix and said, I hope you have a swift recovery. His Highness is in shambles over your injuries. With that, they left the room. Sylvain waited until they were out to say anything. Okay, I'm all for him waiting for the right moment, but who else thought it was gonna happen then and there? I did. He just gave a whole speech about helping us out, then he got nervous. He shrugged. Dmitri's a great guy and all, but I still will never understand why he's so nervous. There's no way he could be turned down, you know. Felix said, I can think of a million reasons why dash. Ingrid cut him off. Shut up, Felix. She sighed. Guys, he just wants to do it on his own time. And that's okay, she said. Learn some patience. Nope. I gotta get what I want when I want it. Sylvain said that to Ingrid, but turned and looked at Felix. You know that. He turned back around so he was facing Ingrid. Anyway. My head hurts. I'm gonna sleep it off. Night. He closed his eyes. Ingrid and Felix just stared at one another for a while before they turned and tried to go to sleep as well. Dida led Dmitri to his room, and tucked him into bed. Are you sure you're feeling alright? Yes. I'm fine. Dmitri said, I'm just overwhelmed. Which is normal for me, as you already know. I'm trying to rest more often when I start to feel this way, it helps. I was feeling fine earlier, but there's a lot in my mind right now. I didn't want to cause a scene in front of my friends. It's alright. I understand you may be having a difficult day. I'm sorry I couldn't have been there for you sooner. Didu inched towards the bed, like he was hinting that he wanted to snuggle. It's not your fault. I had my friends to keep me company until you arrived. Actually, I talked a great deal about you. Dmitri smiled a little, then realized what Didu was doing. Didu, you don't have to ask for permission to snuggle. You'd best remember that. He scooted over and sat up, patting the spot next to him. Didu smiled and climbed into bed, putting his arm around Dmitri. Thank you. I'm glad to know that you at least had some level of comfort with your friends, he said. Would you mind telling me the things you said? About me, I mean. Dmitri smiled a little bit. Just about how much you mean to me. He nestled his head against Didu after he put his arm around him. And when I say that, I mean. I told them. About us. He moved his eyes up to look at Didu. Didu smiled, looking back down at him. I think it's wonderful that you've told your friends about us. I have been wanting to tell Ash, but I figured I should wait until you were ready, he said. You could have told Ash. Ash is the person I'm least worried about, honestly. He'd probably be happy to hear it. He was delighted to know that Didu was happy about his decision to tell his friends. I was thinking, telling our friends is the first step to a better, brighter future. Don't you think? I do. Yes. Didu said, I think we act as a catalyst in this situation. Though I feel as if our love for each other should not have this much of an impact on the Lingdom. It's saddening. Really. It shouldn't. Which is why I hope that it ends with us. Dmitri let out a heavy sigh. Speaking of that. Didu, he sat up a little straighter, but then suddenly got embarrassed again and hid his face in Didu's shirt and didn't finish what he was going to say. Your Highness. Didu thought he was being so cute. He sat up and took Dmitri in his arms. Something is wrong, he said softly. Take your time. I would wait a lifetime just to hear you speak one word to me. Dmitri was a strong and tall person, but he felt so small and cozy when he was in Didu's arms. He sighed. Nothing is wrong. I can assure you. The only thing wrong is that I can't bring myself to tell you something. Perhaps it is because the time isn't right. Or, maybe I'm just not ready to say it. That's all, but he knew he was ready. Part of him was worried that Didu would think it was too early. What are you referring to? Didu seemed to suddenly become afraid. If you would like to call things off, I understand. You have a lot on your plate. I would hate it if I were a burden to you. No. No, Didu. You are never a burden to me. You never were, and you never will be. I promise. Don't you, even for a second, think that I would ever call things off between us. That's the last thing I would do. You frightened me for a moment there, Didu said, placing a kiss on Dmitri's forehead. He thought Dmitri was so pretty. Especially when he does the little jump back in training, and his hair flips, and his sweat flies off of him and he sparkles in the sun. I never mean to frighten you, Dmitri said, smiling when Didu kissed his forehead. He took some time to think about how he might ask Didu to marry him in the future. He wanted to make sure it was perfect instead of rushing into it like he almost just did. What's your idea of the perfect day? I mean, if the two of us were to take the day to ourselves. I know a duty-free day is nearly impossible to come by, but still. We finish our chores bright and early, Didu began, and then I would like to cook a meal for you. Go to the meadow, he paused for a moment. Possibly share another dance in town. Return to the monastery. I will run you a bath. We return to your room and lay side by side until the sun rises once more. Then, we do it again. That's a very simple day. I think I would enjoy that very much, Dmitri said, feeling relaxed just thinking about it. I wish all of our days could be like that. I fear we may never get the chance, though, and when I rise to the throne, my days will just continue to get busier. I'm really afraid that my duties will take my time away from you. As long as I'm able to spend the remainder of my days with you. I do not care how busy you get. Because you'll always know. He put his hand on Dmitri's cheek. And the time we spend together will only become more lovely even if it's for just a moment. If that's what you want, then, I'll make sure of it, Dmitri said. I promise. After Didu put his hand on his cheek, he leaned forward and gave him a short kiss on the lips. When Dmitri pulled away though, Didu pulled back to him and kissed him for longer. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I've just missed this. It's been a while, he said shyly. I apologize if I haven't been the best at showing my affection. It's difficult for me. I don't know why that is, because I love you beyond all else, Dmitri said. Is this a joke? Didu asked. You hug me every time you see me. Didu chuckled. And you wear my flower crowns. And hold my hand. And kiss my cheek. He pointed to his cheek. And you mean to say you do not show me affection? I guess it just feels like you're doing a lot more for me than I am doing for you, Dmitri replied. That doesn't bother you? I just want to make sure that I'm doing my part for you as well. Why would it bother me? If you have forgotten, I owe you my life, Your Highness. Things are the way they always should be, Didu assured him. You don't think I need to? I don't know, kiss you more? Dmitri asked, sounding embarrassed. Everything Sylvain said was starting to get to him. What? No. Not unless you want to, Didu said. I love you for you. I do not need excessive gestures. I hoped that's what you would say. I mean, it's what I expected to hear from you, anyway. I think I need to stop listening to everything Sylvain says, Dmitri said, resting his head back against Didu. Didu replied, yes you do. You are a much better partner in that aspect. For me, at least. He patted Dmitri on the back. I think our way of doing things is perfect. Simply being able to relax with you is enough for me. I don't need much more than that, Dmitri closed his eyes. Anyway, thank you for listening to my thoughts. It's better that they have some place to go rather than staying bottled up where they can do nothing but harm. He snuggled up a little closer. Didu laid back down again. The sun was down, and there were crickets chirping softly outside. Now get some sleep. Dmitri. He was trying so hard to break the cycle of referring to him as His Highness. It was strange to hear Didu not referring to him as Your Highness, but it made Dmitri smile. He felt so nice and cozy that it didn't take him long to actually fall asleep. Chapter 95, Study Sessions. A month had passed. Everyone was finally released from the infirmary, except for Marianne, who was being required to stay in sight of someone at all times. Petra and Ferdinand had become closer to one another. Dorothea hadn't been speaking with Ingrid as much and Ingrid was not happy about it. Ingrid was feeling so weird lately. Flane and Seeth had decked out the school in fall decorations. Everyone was getting so excited for the harvest festival. Dmitri still hadn't proposed to Didu, although he tried on many occasions and failed each time to actually say what he wanted to. A while back, Sylvain's dad came to have a visit with them, but Sylvain didn't want to talk about it with anyone. Shahid still didn't attack. Aside from the last mage attack on the village, things seemed to be pretty calm for the time being. Also, midterms were coming up. Annette was super stressed about midterms. She was in the library almost every day, studying relentlessly. Ash was in the library with a big stack of books next to him. He was looking back and forth between his study guide and one of the books. No, this can't be right, he looked intently at what he had written down. How am I ever going to understand this before the test? He sighed. Ashy, we're gonna fail. We're failures. Annette was sitting across from him. We're never gonna get this. Oh me gosh, and we won't graduate. Oh no 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 no. Ash said, don't say that. I'm sure we'll make it through midterms somehow. I knew it would be difficult, but I never imagined it would be this stressful, did you? He put his own book down. I've been studying non-stop for 2 whole days. I have too, Annette breathed. Sorry for scaring you. You'll pass. I know you will. I'm just freaking out for no reason, I guess, she said, circling and starring an answer on her study guide. What are you having trouble with? I can't seem to get any of these language arts questions right, which is alarming to me, because I happen to be a very avid reader, Ash told her, frowning. I'm struggling with math. And I'm actually good at math, Annette sighed. Here, maybe I can help you. She scooted closer to him. What are you struggling with exactly? I'm struggling to get these reading comprehension questions right, but I have a harder time answering questions about nonfiction. It's just so much easier to become engrossed in a fable. You know. Ash sighed. Oh, believe me, I know. But, nonfiction can actually be pretty engrossing if you give it a chance. See? Look here, for the next 2 hours, Annette helped Ash grasp the material better. And, yes. There you go. You've got it. She hugged him. I hope I was able to help you at least a little bit. She let go. Oh. I see, wow, Annette. You've really helped me understand this better. Have you ever thought about signing up to be a tutor? You're a way better teacher than Professor Manuela. I feel a bit rude saying that, but it's true. I'd come to you even before Professor Hanneman. And that's saying something. He hugged her back. Ha. Well, that's what study buddies are for, am I right? Annette giggled. And, you didn't hear this from me, but I don't think Manuela is the best professor. She hid her face in her hands. Eee. That was so mean of me to say. But I think it. I really do. Annette. We are being so mean. He put his hands on his cheeks and blushed a little bit. But, then again, she didn't look too good last I saw her. Maybe she isn't the best professor because she isn't doing very well. He frowned, instantly feeling bad about being mean. Oh my God. Ash, we're horrible people. Why would we say that? She's definitely going through something and we, she slumped forwards. Okay. No more bullying. We would be like Cyril. She gasped. Wait. Remember when Felix handed him his lunch in the dining hall that day? Yes, that was hard to watch. Ash covered his eyes, then dropped his hands. I don't like fights. Why can't people just settle their arguments with words? With an I'm sorry and that's okay. What happened to solving things with peace and love? He frowned. Well, it's because people like Cyril do exist. They can't handle the I'm sorries and the that's okays. She told him. But we can. And that's what matters, right? She closed her book. You're right. Ash paused. I hope Cyril is okay. I wonder why he has so much anger inside of him. At first, I was really looking forward to becoming friends with him. But now? He's nothing but a bully. He has no right to be saying such mean things. I think. Maybe I should confront him about it? Peacefully. Ash. No. I don't want him to be mean to you again. She shook her head. He's just gonna pick on you some more. She said sadly, I don't want you to be sad again. Remember when you made me repeat those positive affirmations when we were studying in the library that one day? When I was still recovering from my leg injury. Ash said, whenever I'm feeling down, I just remember to tell myself that I am proud, strong, smart, kind, happy, and worthy. He smiled as he started repeating the affirmations. It works like a charm every time. Ah. I'm so happy you still think about them. You know, I wasn't just saying those things. Because they're true, she said, standing up and putting her book in her bag. Oh, Annette. You're too kind. Ash stood up as well. Anyway, thanks again for studying with me. I'll be sure to pass my midterms all because of you. He put his bag on, then started putting his books back on the shelf from where he got them. Where are you off to next? Well, I'm feeling pretty hungry. I think I'll head to lunch. she said, and then, maybe study some more? I know they're still a week away, but I can't help stressing. I feel the same way. You know, after midterms are over, we'll get to unwind with the Harvest Festival. It will all be worth it. Our hard work will pay off, and then we can take a well-deserved load off. He put his last book away. That's actually a really good way of looking at it. Oh, we're just gonna have so much fun at the festival. You know, I'm actually writing a song about it, she said. You are? Oh. Maybe you could teach me? That way, we can sing it together as we enjoy the festivities. Ash started walking out with her. There aren't enough songs about fall. Good thing we have you around to change that. Don't worry, I'm making it good, she said, and I'll teach you as soon as it's done. She made a tray of food and sat across from Mercedes. Maybe I should try my hand at songwriter? What if I sang a song about King Lug? Ash's face lit up. I'm sure there are already so many already in existence, but still. He made sure to make himself a balanced meal. You totally should, Annette said. Mercedes chimed in. Are you two talking about the Harvest Festival? I am so excited for the haunted maze. The haunted maze. Ash suddenly froze up, seeming a little uneasy. Actually, I think I'll pass on that. I've never been one for the spooky side of the harvest season. I mostly like to celebrate by baking a pumpkin pie, or jumping into a pile of leaves with a wet sucker, he said. Mercedes frowned. Oh no, we must go through the maze. Annette said, but that's way too scary for me and Ash, we can't. Mercedes replied, come on you two, can't you be brave? There's nobody I'd rather travel through a haunted maze with than you guys. Mercedes, I am always brave as can be, but if there's one thing I cannot handle, it's ghosts. Ash shook his head. They're just so scary, you know. I actually saw a ghost while I was spending some time up in the mountains, once. I was alone, and, oh, I can't even think about it without getting the shivers. He hugged himself. Hey, there's no real ghosts. Unfortunately, Mercedes said. It's only going to be actors. No real ghosts or monsters. I have a feeling that Hubert is going to show up in that maze as a spooky actor. Don't tell anybody, but I'm sort of afraid of him. I tried making friends with him about a month ago, but I don't know. Sometimes I have nightmares where he is standing in the corner of my room, or at the foot of my bed. Me too, Annette exclaimed. Mercedes laughed. You guys are too funny. Please, he's not that bad. We're going to have fun in the maze. I promise. Hubert came and stood right behind Ash. He was a little too excited about the Halloween season coming up because it would give him a valid excuse to be scary. Ash didn't notice. Oh. I just got a chill. He shook a little shiver out of himself. Annette suddenly screamed and fell backwards out of the bench. Hubert. Why did you do that? She exclaimed. Mercedes giggled. She didn't think it was scary. Ash turned around and let out a little yelp when he saw Hubert standing there. He put his hand over his heart and accidentally knocked his apple juice over. Hubert let out a scary laugh. Is it that time of year already? You'd best be on the lookout for any ghouls or other creatures of the night. He looked at Ash. Oh, and there might be something in your closet, he added, then walked away. Ash just looked at Mercedes with fear in his eyes. Annette sniffled. She was on the floor and covered in apple juice. She stood up. That was really mean. Mercedes sighed. He's just teasing you two. Don't listen to a word he says. Oh, Annette, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spill my apple juice all over you. Here, Ash handed her a napkin, but knew it wouldn't be enough. I got it all over myself as well, maybe we should wash up. He was paranoid, looking around like he was scared of Hubert coming up behind him again. Why, yeah, come on, just in case we shouldn't stay in the same place for too long. She grabbed his arm and pulled him up off the bench. We'll talk to you later, Merci. She began pulling Ash to the bathhouse with her. After getting approved by Holst, Casper's relationship with Hilda was sort of turning into the ideal school romance. During lunch that day, Casper excitedly came into the dining hall and found Hilda. He gave her a sweet hug from behind and kissed her on the cheek. "Good afternoon, Hilda. Hope you're enjoying lunch." He kept his hands around her shoulders, leaning his head against hers from the side. "Casper." She held onto his arms and swallowed her bite of food before saying, "I'm having a great lunch." Here she took a piece of her steak and stabbed it with her fork. "Try some." She held the fork up to his mouth, turning around in his arms slightly so she'd be at a better angle. He bit the steak off of her fork, then started talking with his mouth full. This is so good. It just melts in your mouth." He swallowed it. "Who made this?" "I gotta get myself some of that. It'll help me bulk up for sure. Gotta get stronger for the physical part of midterms." Wait, there's a physical part?" Hilda groaned. "Ugh, nobody told me that." "What is it?" she asked. "Can we just go for a walk or something and get an A?" "Just the pacer test and stuff," Casper said, sitting next to her. "And we gotta show off some of the combat arts we've learned." "I'm not too worried about it. It's the book stuff that I'm not too sure about." He scratched his head. "I'm just hoping I'll do so well on the combat art assessment that my score on the written part won't even matter." Haha. He stole some of her steak, hoping she wouldn't mind. Ugh. Midterms are so stupid. Just if we got good grades on our homework, then why do we need to do it again on a test? It's not fair. I know. I hate it. Plus it's so boring. Why can't I just beat people up and get an A for being able to hold my own? Casper licked the steak juice off his fingers. Linhard isn't even studying. So why should I have to? He asked, shrugging. He's not even studying, but he insists that I study. It's annoying. Well, I think it's because stuff like that comes naturally to Linhard. But us? No. We need to study to get a good grade, which sucks so bad. It does suck. So bad. Casper crossed his arms. It's almost like he's bragging about not having to study. I don't understand how he can understand and remember all this stuff so easily. I couldn't remember what we learned yesterday if I tried, he said. How about you study with him to make it more fun? Hilda suggested. 'Cause if you're alone, you're not gonna get anything done. No, you don't wanna study with Linhard. It's awful. He makes you do all the work yourself and doesn't even let you copy. He tells me to use my contact clues, but I don't even know what context clues means. He won't tell me. He groaned. That's really annoying, Hilda told him. I've been studying with Claude. It's not fun because I'm still studying, but it's better that I'm not alone. Maybe I should just be sick for the written part so I don't have to take it. Then I'll get better for the physical part. Hey, I might be onto something. I'll be sick, then not sick. How's that for a plan, huh? He laughed. Well, they're still gonna make you make it up. So that's not gonna work, Hilda said with a small frown. You're just gonna have to suck it up. Ugh. Fine. But I'm not gonna like it. Hide me. Casper dove under the table. Linhard walked over, looking confused. Hilda, is there any reason Casper is hiding under the table? I saw him duck under there as soon as I walked in. I'm being honest, I actually have no idea. She laughed. I think that maybe he's scared you're gonna make him study. Then he'd be right, because that's exactly why I'm here, Linhard said, showing Hilda the book he was holding. Casper sat up and bumped his head against the table. Ow. Son of a, Yosh. He rubbed his head and got out from beneath the table. Linhard, I don't wanna study. I was gonna take Hilda out for a walk. Oh, I wanna go for a walk. I. No. Casper, I'm sorry, but you really should go study with Linhard, Hilda said with a small sigh. Casper exclaimed, yeah, then let's go. He grabbed Hilda by the hand and went to stand up, but frowned. Ah. You agree with him? But we just talked about how studying is boring. Linhard rolled his eyes. Casper. I'm doing this because I am your friend and I care about you. I want you to pass, I mean well. He crossed his arms. I made sure I got enough rest last night just so I'd be able to give you and your studies my full attention. Hilda said, "Ah, see? Casper, you can't turn an offer like that down. How about we go on a nighttime walk? Okay? It'll be your reward for studying so good." "Okay, fine. But, if I can't figure something out, don't make me use my contact clues." "I don't know what that is," Casper said, getting off the bench. Linhard said, "You mean context. Now come on. Hilda won't mind if I borrow you for a bit." She even said it. He started walking with Casper, who kept looking back at Hilda and waving as they exited. Hilda smiled and waved at Casper, then slumped down on the bench with a heavy sigh. She was so excited to hang out with him, so she was sad about him leaving. Check the description for the links to the author.